It was supposed to be a carefree Friday night. My boy Kareem had pulled me out the house, saying the bar down on Auburn had live music and cheap drinks. I wasn't trying to go, but I went. We laughed, clapped for the band, and drowned in the chatter of folks we didn't know. By the third drink, I reached for my phone, and my pocket was empty. I retraced my steps, bathroom, bar counter, every corner where I'd been. Nothing. Kareem handed me his phone, and I dialed my number. 2 rings, then someone answered. A low, ragged giggle cut through the noise before the line went dead. I froze, tried again. No answer. By midnight, I gave it up. On the ride home, my head buzzed with questions. But when I opened my bedroom door, there was my phone sitting quiet on my nightstand. And that's when the dread set in. Back then, I told myself maybe I'd just been sloppy. Maybe I forgot I left it on the stand before heading out. But the laugh kept replaying in my head, dry and heavy, like somebody dragging gravel across a floor. It reminded me of childhood, standing at the bus stop before sunrise. I was always the last picked up, the street empty except for street lamps buzzing overhead. One morning, a yellow bus with no kids inside rolled up. The driver leaned close out the window, grinning, telling me to hop on. Something in my chest said no. I asked where the other kids were. He insisted he'd get them after me, his voice growing tight, pushy. I stepped back. He finally drove off, leaving nothing but exhaust. Minutes later, my real bus arrived, full of kids, same route, same number. I never told anyone until dinner that night. That's when my parents stopped smiling. That memory stayed with me, tucked away like an old scar. Years later, it surfaced again when I moved into a friend's newly renovated apartment on the south side. Fresh paint, new floors, everything looked clean. But something about the woman next door was wrong. She was middle-aged, but carried herself like time had broken her. Nights, I'd hear gospel radio blaring through the thin walls, her voice raised in arguments with no one. After weeks of lost sleep, I knocked on her door, tried to be neighborly. The moment it opened, my stomach turned. Crosses smeared across the walls in red and black paint. Words like angels and Jesus scratched over and over. Windows painted solid black, carpet stained and crawling. No light, no air, just a heavy, rotten smell. She looked at me without blinking. Then, without a word, shut the door in my face. And the music got louder. The next night, my girlfriend, Tiana, came to stay over. Around 3 a.m., I woke up, thirsty, eyes half open. At first, I thought it was just one of those tricks shadows play when you're between dreaming and waking. But this shadow didn't vanish. Someone was standing by the bed, watching. My throat clenched. As my eyes adjusted, I saw it was her, my neighbor, her figure outlined against the streetlight filtering through blinds. In her hand, she clutched something thin, glinting faintly. I sat up too fast, and she whispered, "You should lock your doors at night." Then she turned, quiet as smoke, and walked out. I locked every bolt in the apartment after that, but I couldn't lock out the image of her face hovering over us as we slept. By morning, I swore I heard her voice again, chanting beneath my window, words tangled and wild. Sunlight didn't soften the terror. When I leaned out the window, there she was crouched low in the grass, rocking side to side. Her mouth spilled out syllables that weren't English, sharp, guttural sounds that made the hairs on my arms rise. In her hand hung a plastic bag. The heat carried its smell to me, sweet, rotten, unbearable. I gagged when I realized what it was. Her dog, long dead, bones and fur slumped together inside the thin plastic. She cradled it like a child, whispering in tongues to the bag. I couldn't hold it anymore. I climbed upstairs, banged on another neighbor's door, begged for answers. His eyes darted nervously before he admitted she'd broken into his place once, slipped behind his couch while his kids watched TV. When he turned, she was just standing there, a power drill in her hand. That's when it clicked, what she carried by my bed. By then, I was done pretending it was just quirks or harmless madness. I called the cops, voice trembling as I described her breaking in, standing over us, clutching weapons. They didn't sound surprised. Turns out, they already knew. She'd been on file for years, diagnosed schizophrenic, violent when off her meds. But because she owned her unit, the police said their hands were tied. They couldn't enter without permission unless she was outside. That meant I had to wait. Wait for her to run out of cigarettes or groceries. Wait with my locks double-bolted and a baseball bat leaning against the wall. For 2 nights, I sat in the dark, every creak of the floorboards sounding like her steps. My nerves frayed with each hour. Then, at 2 a.m. sharp, I heard the squeak of her door and the shuffle of her slippers heading across the street. This was my chance. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers, whispering into the phone like she could still hear me. Within minutes, red and blue lights washed across the block. 3 cruisers and a van pulled up so quietly it was like they'd rehearsed this moment. I peeked through the blinds as officers surrounded her. She froze under the harsh glow of the gas station lights, her bag still in hand. I couldn't hear her words, but her mouth kept moving, rapid, feverish, like she was praying or cursing or both. They moved fast, restrained her, lifted her into the van, and just like that, she was gone. Silence folded over the street, heavy and sudden. For weeks after, I'd wake up certain she was back, standing at my bedside, drill in hand. My dreams smelled of decay and gospel static. But in the daylight, her apartment window stayed black, curtains never moving. She had vanished. Still, her absence didn't end the unease. It only deepened the shadows. I started second-guessing everything, like the night at my job when glass shattered against the front office window. It was nearly midnight in the industrial district, no cars, no people. I found a rock big enough to break bone sitting on the floor inside. Called security, packed up my things, tried to shake it off. But walking to my car, the silence pressed too heavy. I sprinted, fumbling keys, swore I felt eyes crawling across my back. Inside the car, I tried calming down until I noticed something. I never unlocked the doors. They'd been open the whole time. I spun around, patting the back seat, breath ragged. Nothing there. Still, the sense lingered like someone had been, and that feeling followed me all the way home. I tried to shake the feeling, told myself I was paranoid. But paranoia doesn't ride behind you on a bike. That night, I decided to meet my boy Kareem again. He was out drinking, and I figured company would ease my nerves. I hopped on my own bike and pedaled through the neighborhood, the moonlight laying silver stripes across the road. Then I heard it, another set of wheels turning behind me. Slow, steady, keeping pace. I eased to the side, letting him pass. When he did, he turned his head. The smile he gave me was off, wide, twitching, alive with something unbalanced. And then I saw the bike. Not just any bike, my mama's. Panic surged through me. I bolted home, heart knocking my ribs, tires screeching against pavement. When I got there, my stomach dropped. Her bike was gone, and when my car doors stood open, that sight stole the air from my lungs. The back left door swung wide like an invitation. I hadn't touched it. I'd driven earlier with no reason to open that side. I circled the car, every step tight with dread. Nothing inside, at least nothing I could see, but the thought of someone riding hidden, waiting, gnawed at me. Sleep was useless that night. I sat up, lights blazing, TV muted just to drown the silence. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. I tried convincing myself it was coincidence, that maybe Mama forgot to lock her bike, that maybe I'd been careless with the car. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't random. Somebody was playing with me, sliding in and out of my life without leaving fingerprints. And I couldn't shake the question that dug deeper than fear. What if they weren't done yet? I thought leaving the apartment for work would bring relief, but the night shift only sharpened the edges of my fear. The campground sat on the edge of town, woods pressing in close, the air heavy with pine and silence. My job was simple, hold down a shack from midnight to dawn. The first week, the guy I was replacing leaned over like he was sharing a secret. He pointed to the payphone a few yards away and said, "It rings every night. 4:17 on the dot. Just once." I laughed it off, thought it was some automated test. Months passed, and in the summer I kept the windows shut. Never heard a thing. But come August, the nights got too hot. I cracked the glass for air, and at exactly 4:17 a.m., I heard it for the first time. One ring, thick and hollow, like it came from underwater. That sound crawled under my skin. It wasn't a normal ring, more like a bell rung from the bottom of a well, echoing with dampness. I stared at the phone until silence returned, then tried to laugh it off. But curiosity has teeth. A week later, I set an alarm for 4:15. Stepped outside, dew clinging to the grass, crickets humming like a choir. I stood by the pay phone, heart thudding, waiting. Right on schedule, the shrill, waterlogged ring split the air. I snatched it up, whispering hello. Nothing. Just dead air, heavy as if someone was breathing but refusing to speak. I repeated this ritual for a week. Always the same, silence like a presence, just listening. Finally, I told myself it was pointless, let it go. But the silence followed me back inside, settling into the shack's corners like smoke. And I wondered who was waiting on the other end. For a while, I managed to ignore it. September passed with quiet nights, no alarms, no calls. But the unease never left. The first week of October, curiosity clawed its way back. I told myself it was just a phone, just wires and circuits. So I set the alarm again, walked out into the crisp autumn air, leaves crunching underfoot. The moon was thin, the campground empty. I waited, palms sweating against the cold metal receiver. For 17, the phone rang once. I picked it up, bracing for silence. At first, that's all I got. I whispered hello into the void, over and over. Then came the sound, like someone inhaling through clenched teeth, ragged and slow. My stomach dropped. Then a voice, gravelly, broken, like it had been dragged through stone. It said my full name. First, middle, last. A name I'd never spoken here. The moment my name spilled from that line, my throat locked up. I dropped the receiver like it burned, the hollow clatter echoing against the metal booth. My chest heaved as I stumbled back, whispering, no, no, no. I forced myself forward, lifted the phone again with trembling fingers. Nothing but dead air. My voice shook as I rattled change into the slot, hit star 69. The mechanical voice read out the last number. California. I stood there frozen, the Indiana night pressing cold around me. I didn't know anyone in California, hadn't given my number to a soul outside the state. My legs carried me back to the shack, but my mind stayed out there by that phone. All night, the sound of that voice circled me. The gravel, the scrape, the way it carried my name like it had been waiting years to say it. And I couldn't stop wondering how. Sleep became a stranger. Every creak of the shack, every gust through the trees sounded like that ragged breath echoing back through the receiver. I tried to bury myself in my routines, coffee, video games, late-night scripture on my phone, but the silence between each moment stretched tight, expectant. I didn't tell Kareem or Mama. They'd only say I was stressed, hearing things. But I knew the weight of my own name when it dropped through that line. That voice wasn't imagined. It was deliberate. A week later, I drove past the pay phone in daylight. It looked ordinary, chipped paint, gum on the receiver, weeds sprouting at its base. But when I pressed my palm to it, the metal felt cold as ice, colder than the October air. I snatched my hand back and swore I heard it. Faint, inside my ear though the phone never rang. A hiss. Inhale. Waiting. I tried to shake it, but the pay phone lived in my head like a splinter. Every night, I sat in that shack, eyes fixed on the dark glass, waiting for the ring that might never come. Then one shift, my curiosity beat down my fear. I walked out at 4:10, early, the night thick and damp. The booth loomed under the yellow glow of a street lamp. I pressed my ear close without touching it, listening. At 4:17, the ring crawled out again, hollow and wet. I picked it up fast. Who are you? I demanded, voice sharper than I felt. The breath returned, dragging slow like someone savoring pain. Then nothing. No name this time. Just a scrape, like nails over stone, before the line died. I lowered the phone, knees weak, and in the reflection of the booth's glass, I swore someone stood behind me. I spun so fast I nearly tripped, but the booth was empty, glass showing nothing but my own pale reflection. Still, I couldn't shake the sense that I'd missed something, that someone had been there and slipped away just before I turned. I ran back to the shack, locked the door, pressed my back against the wall. The silence was too thick, pressing on my ears. I turned on the radio, gospel spilling low into the room like Mama used to keep it when fear walked the house. But the music didn't settle me. Every pause between notes seemed filled with a hiss, a breath. Around dawn, I finally drifted into uneasy sleep. And in that shallow space between dreaming and waking, I heard it again. That voice. This time it wasn't on the phone. It was right by my ear, whispering my name. I jolted awake, sweat soaking through my shirt. The shack door was still bolted, windows locked, everything just as I left it. But the echo of that whisper clung to the air, like it had seeped into the wood. The next nights, I refused to answer the phone. I let it ring its single hollow tone, watched the clock tick 4:17, and sat trembling in silence. But avoiding it didn't help. Shadows around the shack seemed thicker, the trees leaning closer. On my break, I called Mama, just to hear her voice. She prayed over me right there on the line, said the devil speaks when you listen too close. Her words steadied me, but deep down I feared she was right, because the next night, the phone didn't ring. Instead, it was my cell, buzzing at 4:17 a.m., glowing with an unknown California number. The sight of that number nearly stopped my heart. My thumb hovered over the screen, trembling, torn between ending the call and answering. At the last second, I swiped. Hello. My voice cracked. The same inhale hissed across the line, jagged and cruel. Then silence stretched so long I thought maybe it had ended. But then the voice spoke again, that gravel tone scraping every nerve in me. It didn't say my name this time. It said my address. Every digit, every letter, down to the apartment number. I dropped the phone onto the desk like it was burning me. My legs carried me in frantic circles around the shack, checking locks I already knew were bolted. When I picked the phone back up, the line was dead. No call log, no missed call, just emptiness. But outside, the payphone receiver swung slowly, back and forth. The receiver's slow sway was worse than any scream. Left to right, back again, as if an unseen hand had just set it moving. My body refused to step outside. I locked the shack door, pressed my forehead against the cool wood, whispering prayers my grandmother taught me. Cover me, Lord. Don't let them in. The rest of the night dragged on. At sunrise, I forced myself to check. The phone hung still now, receiver neatly in place. Like nothing had ever happened. That evening, I drove home on autopilot, every shadow on the roadside feeling like it might peel open into a face. Mama called, her voice warm but worried, said she dreamed of me standing in a storm alone. I didn't tell her, but when I walked inside my apartment, I froze. On my nightstand, my phone buzzed. Same California number, 4:17 p.m. on the dot. The daylight made it worse. Shadows you can excuse at night, but in the afternoon, with sun pouring through the blinds, that's when you know something's real. I stared at the screen as it rattled across the nightstand. The same number. California. My stomach twisted. Against every instinct, I answered. Static, faint at first, then the breath again, slow, dragging. I whispered, "What do you want?" The voice came low, like gravel tumbling in a throat. "I'm close." I dropped the phone, heart pounding so hard I felt it in my teeth. When I picked it back up, the call log was blank. No record, no trace. That night, I didn't go to work. I sat on the couch, all lights blazing, baseball bat across my knees. Every creak of the building made me flinch. At 4:17 a.m., my cell lit up again. Only this time, it showed my number. Seeing my own number glowing on the screen cracked something in me. It rang once, then stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than sound. I pressed the phone on my chest, whispering, "This ain't real, this ain't real." When I finally looked again, a voicemail notification waited. My thumb hesitated, but curiosity pulled harder than fear. I pressed play. The message was short, just that ragged inhale, then my grandmother's voice calling my name, clear as day. But she'd been gone 3 years. I dropped the phone, tears stinging hot. Fell to my knees, rocking just like that woman with the bag dog. By dawn, I drove straight to Mama's. She saw my face and didn't ask questions, just laid hands on me and prayed, her voice fierce and trembling. For the first time in weeks, I felt warmth chase some of the cold away. But the phone still waited. I left the phone on the kitchen table at Mama's house, hoping distance would break the pattern. But the clock doesn't care about walls. At exactly 4:17 a.m., it rang from across the room. The sound dragged me out of restless sleep on her couch. Mama stirred too, eyes wide. "Don't touch it," she whispered, clutching her Bible. The ringing stopped after a single tone. Then, in the stillness, Mama's old landline lit up, though it hadn't rung in years. Same number on the caller ID, California. We sat frozen, listening to the plastic hum with electricity it shouldn't have had. When it clicked off, Mama opened her Bible, reading aloud from Psalms, her voice steady. But when she finished, the cell phone lit once more. This time, it didn't ring. It just showed one word across the screen: outside. My chest tightened. I moved to the window like I was being pulled. The street outside Mama's house looked empty, just the flicker of the corner lamp, the hush of trees swaying. But I couldn't shake the weight pressing against the glass like eyes watching back. Mama stood behind me, her hand firm on my shoulder. "Don't you open nothing," she warned, voice lined with steel. She prayed louder now, words sharp, slicing the silence. The phone buzzed again. This time it didn't show a number at all, just my own reflection in the black screen, eyes wide and frightened. Then 3 knocks rattled the front door. Not rushed, not angry. Slow, steady. Mama grabbed her anointing oil, marked the doorframe with trembling hands. The knock stopped, but when I dared to glance back at the phone, new letters glowed across the screen. "Let me in." I gripped Mama's hand, both of us shaking, both of us refusing to answer the door. She prayed louder, voice breaking. "Lord, shut the mouth of every spirit not sent by you." The house seemed to hold its breath. Then, just like that, the phone went dark. No glow, no hum. The air felt lighter, as if the weight pressing on our chests had lifted. Mama collapsed in her chair, whispering thanks. Days passed, then weeks. For 17 came and went without a sound. The pay phone by the shack was torn out by city workers, left as an empty patch of concrete. My cell stayed quiet. I still think about that voice sometimes, the way it carried my name. But when fear creeps close, I remember that night. Mama's hands, her prayers painting the walls with protection. Whatever waited outside, it never came back. And peace finally did.